Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the National Museum of the United States Air Force. The ceremony will begin shortly. Please make your way to your seats and silence your electronic devices. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the National Museum of the United States Air Force. The ceremony will begin shortly. Please make your way to your seats and silence your electronic devices. Yes, ma'am. Correct. Yes, ma'am. Gardening with my life. Okay.
The binder is up here, so we'll have the white binder and the black binder.
Because she goes first. So.
Yes.
Okay, white binder.
When you're done, take your binder with you.
Absolutely. Yes, sir. Good evening, and welcome to the official opening of the Enlisted exhibit. My name is Staff Sergeant Robert Day. It is my honor to be your narrator for tonight's event. At this time, we would like you to please stand for the arrival of our official party and remain standing for the presentation of the colors by the Base Honor Guard and the playing of our national anthem by the Air Force Band of Flight. Ladies and gentlemen, please be seated. Thank you to the Wright-Patterson Air Force Base Honor Guard and the Air Force Band of Flight for the national anthem. Tonight, we are honored to have many distinguished guests in attendance this evening, both in person and virtually. Please know we are most appreciative of the time and effort each one of you has made to attend this event. At this time, we would like to introduce our speakers for the evening. As a reminder, please hold your applause until all introductions have been made. Director, National Museum of the United States Air Force, Mr. David Tillotson and his spouse, Wanda. The 19th Chief Master Sergeant of the Air Force, Joanne S. Bass. The 2nd Chief Master Sergeant of the Space Force, John F. Bentavania. Chief Executive Officer, Air Force Museum Foundation, Dr. Rory Cartier. Research Curator, National Museum of the United States Air Force, Mr. Brian Carnes. In addition, our distinguished guests include, joining us virtually, the 5th Chief Master Sergeant of the Air Force, Robert Gaylor, the 13th Chief Master Sergeant of the Air Force, Frederick R. Finch, and his spouse, Pat, the 14th Chief Master Sergeant of the Air Force, Gerald R. Murray, and his spouse, Sherry, and son, Robert. The 14th Chief Master Sergeant of the Air Force, the 16th Chief Master Sergeant of the Air Force, James Jim Roy, and his spouse, Paula. Representative of Ohio's 36th House District, Miss Andrea White. Representative of Ohio's 38th House District, Mr. Willis Blackshear. Representing the Air Force Foundation Board of Trustees, Chair, Lieutenant General C.D. Moore II, United States Air Force, retired. There are two other groups we would like to recognize. First, would the 2023 Outstanding Airman of the Year please stand? We are extremely honored to have you join us tonight. Secondly, if you are an Enlisted Force Exhibit contributor, please stand. Without you, this exhibit would not tell the story of enlisted airmen and guardians. And finally, we welcome all Air Force and Space Force commanders, command chiefs, senior enlisted leaders, first sergeants, and civil leadership too numerous to introduce, who are attending us tonight and joining us virtually. Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, we would like to welcome the Chief Executive Officer, Air Force Museum Foundation, Dr. Rory Cartier, to the podium.
Good evening. It is a great honor and privilege to be here with all of you tonight. So I am proud to represent the Air Force Museum Foundation as we gather to celebrate this inauguration of the Enlisted Forces exhibit here at the National Museum of the United States Air Force. This occasion is not merely about unveiling artifacts or displays, but rather a profound tribute to the brave men and women who serve unwavering with dedication and have been the bedrock of our Air Force's success. Their stories, sacrifices, unparalleled commitment have shaped the very fabric of our nation's defense. This exhibit would not have been made possible without the generous support of our esteemed donors, whose commitment to preserving the legacy of our enlisted forces and the Air Force history has made this a reality. The Air Force Museum Foundation would like to express our heartfelt gratitude to the Pritzker Military Foundation for their pivotal contribution, a testament to their mission to recognize the contributions of the citizen soldier, an ethos that resonates deeply with the spirit of this Enlisted Forces exhibit. Moreover, we appreciate and recognize our longtime base of donors and supporters, which include numerous enlisted soldiers, whose unwavering support have not only fueled this endeavor, but also serves as a testament to the enduring camaraderie that define the Air Force family. And I would be remiss not to acknowledge the tireless efforts of the National Museum of the United States Air Force and its dedicated team, whose commitment to excellence has brought this exceptional exhibit to life. Their passion for preserving the stories of the United States Air Force is commendable and deserving of our highest praise. So, as we commemorate the opening of the Enlisted Forces exhibit tonight, let us carry forth the stories and the legacies of these remarkable men and women. And may this serve as a testament to their invaluable service, inspiring generations to come and fostering a deeper understanding of the profound impact of our enlisted forces on the United States Air Force. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Cartier. We would like to invite the Research Curator for the National Museum of the United States Air Force, Mr. Brian Carnes, to the podium.
Good evening. As the research lead for the Enlisted Force exhibit, I'm honored that I was trusted to help develop the content and storyline of the enlisted airmen and guardians who served and continue to serve today. Yet I'm just one piece of the puzzle. It is the museum's incredible team of curators, conservators, designers, exhibit specialists, and restorers, backed by our leadership, that brings exhibits like this to fruition. This large exhibit, which is actually comprised of 46 smaller exhibits with displays in every gallery throughout this museum, was no easy task, but the outcome was worth it. Let me be clear. This exhibit does not take away anything from the Air Force Enlisted Heritage Hall at Maxwell or the Airman Heritage Museum at Joint Air Base San Antonio, but it's something we wanted to do to reflect enlisted heritage and history here at the museum. It complements our program's existing fine efforts by increasing the story's visibility in the Department of the Air Force's flagship service-level museum. So how did we get where we are tonight? I think it all depends on the person you ask, but here's my story. When I arrived at Wright-Patterson as a civil servant in 2009, I realized the Air Force had a national museum. I was not too sure how I didn't know this as I served in the Air Force. Maybe I did and somehow forgot, but for the past 13 years, I've been here at the museum in different divisions, filling different roles. And during that time, I've spent countless hours walking these galleries, reading the exhibit text, and learning about our history. And although we did a world-class job telling the Department of the Air Force's story, I, and maybe one or two other people, personally felt the enlisted force was underrepresented. We did a good job at including enlisted on our exhibits, and even highlighted most of our distinguished enlisted airmen. However, I really didn't see a reflection of my service or even my father's service in the museum. Now, being third generation Air Force enlisted myself, I thought, how could this be? We, the enlisted, are the backbone of the Department of the Air Force. We represent upwards of 80% of the entire force. So as luck would have it, Mr. Tillotson, here, our director, 4 years ago arrived, and I was lucky enough to be his executive officer. So every now and then, or maybe I did it all the time, who knows, I would mention to him that we're missing some enlisted heritage in this museum and we would like to include more of the enlisted story. Now, I'm not saying I was the catalyst for the development of the enlisted force, but I'd like to think I did play a small part in it. But really, credit goes to Mr. Tillotson for improving the exhibit's expansion, and I'm just glad I was part of the team. Although I was not the original lead of the team, that honor goes to Jeff DeFord, who's in our audience tonight. In fact, I wasn't even the second person to lead the team. That would be Alyssa Light, who's joining us virtually from California. However, like the saying goes, third time's a charm, and I happened to be in the right place at the right time following their departures, and I filled the role. With a plan in place and the director's backing, our team moved forward to capture what we felt was a broad and diverse representation of the enlisted force. And I truly believe we did that. And we continue to do it in our other exhibits as well, such as the museum's 100th anniversary, Women in the Air Force, Humanitarian, Search and Rescue in Southeast Asia, and so on. We try to capture the many roles and responsibilities our enlisted force filled, but you and I both know that you can't tell every story. So as you look around tonight and tour the exhibit, we welcome any feedback that you may have, because this is a living exhibit, and we can change, adjust, or add as needed. And it was truly an honor and privilege to be on this team. And I would like to thank the Air Force Museum Foundation for their support, the museum leadership for their guidance and trust, my teammates who put a lot of time and effort, and sometimes frustration in this exhibit over the past 4 years. I would also like to thank all you, the distinguished visitors, senior leaders, audience members who are here tonight or joined us online virtually to celebrate the exhibit opening. But most importantly, I would like to thank the enlisted service members who, without them, these stories could never be told. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Carnes. Ladies and gentlemen, it is now our pleasure to welcome Chief Master Sergeant of the Air Force, Joanne Bass, to the podium.
Good evening. Can y'all hear me? Okay, good, because we can't hear anything over here. Very good. It is such an honor to be here with you today, and as I always say, it is a great day to be a United States Airman, especially today on a day such as this. For those who know me know that I like to share how our airmen, all of our airmen, deeply inspire me. In fact, I just got here after being on the ground at Air Force Global Strike Command for about 18 quick hours, where every one of our striker airmen, our officers, our enlisted, our civilians, did not come short in inspiring me with the mission that they do so that all of us can sleep well at night. However, tonight, on this very special evening, I could not be more excited for us to celebrate and honor the legacy of our enlisted airmen. Not only are we celebrating this unveiling, but right now is another special event where tonight in Montgomery, Alabama, there's hundreds of us gathered there as well to celebrate the 50th anniversary of our Senior NCO Academy, where our Senior NCO Academy has been developing and educating the leaders that we need for 50 years. Since the Vietnam War, as we looked to our Senior NCO Academy to educate the super grades of an uncertain future. If we were not here tonight, there's many of us who would absolutely be there celebrating the work that they've done to educate and prepare our senior enlisted leaders for the challenges that they face. And so we are absolutely with them in spirit. But for tonight, this event would not be possible without the dedicated folks that are here at the National Museum of our U.S. Air Force and our Air Force Museum Foundation Board. So to Mr. Tillotson, General Moore, Dr. Cartier, to you and your teams, thank you so much for what you do to honor and support the dedication of our airmen and honor our Air Force history. Thank you so much for keeping that spirit alive. It's also good to have our former Chief Master Sergeants of the Air Force with us today. It's not often that we get to celebrate together and to have SIMSAF number 13 and his spouse, SIMSAF number 14 and his spouse, and SIMSAF number 16 and his spouse. Y'all give them a big hand clap. And we're not supposed to have favorites, but I couldn't be more excited that Chief Master Sergeant of the Air Force number 5 is with us virtually. So y'all can turn around and wave at the cameras and just say hi to SIMSAF 5 Gaylor. And to much of maybe your surprise, we have another American Airman legend who is also with us virtually, and that is Chief Master Sergeant Wayne Fisk. From the last American boots on the ground in the Vietnam War to the first director of our Air Force Enlisted Heritage Hall at Gunter Annex, Chief Fisk has a storied career, and he is absolutely a legend in our Special Operations Forces, as well as being a legend in the Air Force. So y'all give him a hand clap as well. To all of our community partners that are here today, it's wonderful to see you. It's wonderful to see your family members. To our civic leaders, to our representatives, thank you so much for gracing us. We cannot do what we do as a United States Air Force without the support of all of you. It really helps us get after a whole of nation, so thank you for giving up your time to be with us today. To our commanders that are here, to our chiefs, to my teammates on your Air Force Senior Enlisted Leader Council, to all of our airmen, I saw the ALS class here today, to all of our guardians, where are you at, guardians? There's 3 of them. No, there's 4. There's 4. But that's a good percentage. So we couldn't be more excited. Thank you so much for being here tonight. And most of all, for the things that each and every one of you does today to create history for tomorrow. To our exhibit contributors who spent countless of hours, in fact, they told me years, to make tonight possible, thank you for your crucial work in honoring those who came before us and have carved out a path for us. Like many of you here today, I cannot help but think about the history makers who have donned our nation's cloth and served in the world's greatest Air Force. The men and women of our enlisted corps are not merely participants in the chronicles of our nation's defense, but they are architects of history. Our heritage is rooted in the ideals of integrity, service, and excellence. a tapestry woven with the threads of sacrifice and of valor. From the enlisted pilots, I'll say that one more time, from the enlisted pilots who flew harrowing missions across the perilous skies during World War II, destroying 249 enemy aircraft, to the dedicated air police who stood vigilant throughout the Cold War, to our battlefield airmen in Operations Iraqi and Enduring Freedom, and to the enlisted airmen that are deployed around the globe today, each generation has left an incredible mark on our legacy. We forged a path of courage, commitment, and empowerment. It's been courageous airmen like Airman First Class John Levitow, Chief Master Sergeant Richard Etchberger, somebody who I served with years ago at the 2-4 STS, Master Sergeant John Chappie Chapman, and U.S. Army Air Corps Staff Sergeant Henry Red Irwin. It's committed airmen like Chief Master Sergeant Dorothy Holmes, or Master Sergeant George Holmes, the last enlisted pilot who retired in 1942, or Chief Master Sergeant of the Air Force Thomas Barnes, or it's committed airmen like our current Chief Master Sergeants that are here with us today. The folks that still continue to pour into our airmen. It's also empowered airmen like the 67 SADSACs who during World War II in Tunisia, when all of their officers were killed in action, remained a fully functional unit with just their enlisted members, which reminds us why Mission Command is so very essential. Our enlisted corps is full of history makers, from Chuck Yeager's supersonic flight and President George Bush's governance to Bob Ross and Morgan Freeman, not to mention Pulitzer Prize nominees, astronauts, Supreme Court justices, and Olympians, all proud Air Force veterans. And it's folks who I think are online, like Dr. James Meredith, who might be attending virtually, who's a prior enlisted airman who made history when he became the first African American admitted to Ole Miss and became a civil rights activist and an author. But as history makers, we are not confined by the pages of the past. Instead, we draw wisdom from our heritage to chart a bold course for the future. The challenges that we will face in the 21st century demand airmen that are courageous, committed, empowered, while also agile, adaptable, innovative, and will be problem solvers. We find ourselves in an era of rapid technological advancements, evolving threats, and a global landscape that is both interconnected and very complex. In the face of these challenges, we must embrace change and the opportunity to innovate, to grow, and to have bold leadership. In the coming years, we will witness history being made on new frontiers, and it will be our enlisted airmen who will be the pioneers in this new era of warfare. The challenges that we face are dynamic and diverse, from evolving threats in cyberspace to safeguarding our interests in space. Our heritage equips us with the wisdom to navigate these challenges, but it will be because of our determination that we will embrace change, re-optimize our force for great power competition, and lead from the front that will define our future. Just as the brave airmen of the past stared into the unknown skies with courage, our airmen will be charged with defending our nation's digital infrastructure, ensuring that our adversaries never compromise our security in the virtual realm. In the coming years, the enlisted force will continue to make history just as their predecessors did. They will innovate, they will lead, and they will serve selflessly, and they will serve honorably. They will be the ones who shape the future of air and space power. I challenge each and every airman that is in here today and watching online to embrace the spirit of the history maker that you see in these walls. I challenge each and every airman to innovate and to push the boundaries of what's possible. And I challenge each and every airman to be the architects of a future that honors our heritage and secures this great nation. We will, ladies and gentlemen, continue to make history. We will absolutely continue to shape a legacy that will be remembered for generations to come. Thanks so much for being part of the greatest Air Force in the world. Hua.
Thank you, Chief Master Sergeant of the Air Force Bass. It is also our pleasure to welcome Chief Master Sergeant of the Space Force, John Bentavenia, to the podium.
You think I know better than to try to follow Chief Bass after she gives a speech. Joe's wonderful words, thank you. You know, as I had the opportunity, sitting here, we had the vantage point to kind of look at the displays that are here. And as we were speaking, I'm looking around thinking about the thousands of enlisted men and women who made these capabilities possible, from the maintainers to the designers, operators who allowed the pilots and the air crew to do the things they need to do. No single museum alone, I think, can capture the impact of the enlisted force of the United States. But I'm really excited to be here tonight, and I'm almost embarrassed to admit, this is my first time here. You know, I've been doing this for a while. I know I don't look that old, but I've been doing this, I do have history and legacy. But it's my first time here, and it is overwhelming. And when you think about why we're here tonight specifically, to recognize the enlisted impact that especially within the Department of the Air Force, for the airmen and the guardians that had on the nation, this is powerful. It really is, and I'm glad to be here. I want to thank the National Museum of the Air Force, the staff specifically, for keeping our heritage alive and for educating and inspiring the future generation of explorers and principled public servants. I also want to thank the board members of the Air Force Museum Foundation. Like many great things born of passion, dedication, and hard work, the museum has grown over the past 100 years from a small engineering collection to the world's largest military air and space museum. I also want to thank our local leaders and elected officials. As military members, we bring ourselves and our family members and our loved ones into the communities and into the districts to live and thrive. Thank you very much for your continued support. Chief Bass, my wingman, my teammate, thanks to you and the thousands of your airmen assigned to the Space Force that operate our installations, our power projection platforms, we are one team, one fight. Tonight we're here to recognize legacy and impact of the enlisted force. And as Chief Bass mentioned, there are no better representatives than having the formers in the audience with us and virtually online. Chiefs, thank you very much for being here and for the impact that you had on me personally as I grew up as an airman and the impact you continue to have on our enlisted force today. David McCullough, an American historian, said, "History is who we are and why we are the way we are." History is who we are and why we are the way we are. History is powerful. Just as the United States Air Force traces its heritage to the Army and the creation of the Aeronautical Division of the U.S. Army Signal Corps in 1907, the Space Force can find its roots in the Air Force as early as 1958, when A1C Donald Farrell, a finance specialist, spent 7 days in the Space Cabin Simulator to prove humans could survive the trip to the moon. 7 days. Could you imagine a call for volunteers? What did that sound like? You want to live in a cabin for 7 days? But our enlisted heritage and enlisted airmen raised their hand and said, hey, I want to help the nation reach the stars, and I'm going to do that. In 1982, the Department of the Air Force established Air Force Space Command. First commander was General James Hartinger, who himself was a prior enlisted soldier. For 37 years, the airmen of Air Force Space Command were the guardians of the high frontier. I was one of those airmen for almost 20 years. Established on 20 December 2019, today's Space Force is less than 4 years old. 4 years old. Think about the Air Force in 1952. The Air Force at that point, after 4 years, had just transitioned into the airman rank that we have today, and moved away from the Army structure. So when we think about where we are today as a Space Force, it took the Air Force at the time 4 years to come up with their own distinct rank structure. Now in the Space Force, we did it in 14 months, I'm just saying. As of 30 September, the Space Force has 4,513 enlisted guardians. These are men and women comprised from all the other services. We have prior airmen, prior Marines, prior soldiers, prior sailors. We also have men and women who directly joined the United States Space Force, like Specialist Amy Biggers, who was one of the very first groups of individuals who walked into a recruiting station and took the oath on October 20th, 2020. Today, Specialist Biggers works at 2nd Space Operations Squadron at Schriever Space Force Base in Colorado, where she was operating the Global Positioning Satellite System, providing the precision, navigation, and timing signal that not only enables the way that we fight our wars, but the way that we live our lives. She's making history. We are primarily an employed in place force as a Space Force, but we were asking Guardians to dominate a space, cyber, and information domain that they will never see, they will never touch, and they may never experience. Yet to maintain a competitive endurance in great power competition, our enlisted Guardians must and will succeed. Like Specialist Matthew Tarango at the 72nd Intelligence Reconnaissance Surveillance Squadron, who's a Guardian. And he's helping build the intelligence enterprise that we need as a service and as a nation to compete against a threat China has in the space domain, a unique domain we as a service responsible for. He is making history for his service. Tech Sergeant Tariq Salem, the 645th Cyber Defense Squadron at Patrick Space Force Base, helping define and defend the cyber infrastructure so vital to the nation and the launch capability for assured access to space that we rely on, not only from a national defense perspective, but from a commercial perspective. He is making history. By the way, he's also the very first service-level winner of the Polaris Award recipient for character that we had in our service. One of our 4 core values, making history. A former Command Sergeant Major in the Army, Chief Master Sergeant Jeff Gorilla, like all of the inter-service transfers who joined the Space Force, had a very promising and successful career for him in the United States Army as a Command Sergeant Major, but took the leap of faith to join the team of the Space Force and become a Guardian. Today, Chief Gorilla is in our service component in Central Command, providing the capabilities that the Space Force brings to that combatant commander. He is making history for his service. Today, the Space Force is small, and just like the museum, when it started as an engineering study collection, very small. But Guardians, like the ones I've mentioned, all Guardians are creating our Space Force history each and every day. And 100 years from now, the Enlisted exhibit of the National Museum of the Space and Air Force will be overflowing with that history that we're making today. We are Guardians. This is the way. Though we're here to talk about history, and legacy. The future is ours, and the capabilities of our Department of the Air Force Enlisted Corps is limitless. Let's continue to make history. Semper Super.
Thank you, Chief Master Sergeant of the Air Force, Space Force, my apologies, Pennsylvania. As some of you are aware, the year 2023 marks the 100th anniversary of the National Museum of the United States Air Force. The opening of our Enlisted exhibit is one of our special events that culminates our centennial. For the past 100 years, the highly skilled, trained, and talented enlisted force have been the foundation for the daily operations of the United States Army Air Corps, the United States Air Force, and now the United States Space Force. In honor of our centennial, we would now like to welcome to the stage Ohio State Representative Ms. Andrea White and Ohio State Representative Mr. Willis Blackshear, Jr. for a few remarks. They will present a proclamation paying tribute to the 100th anniversary to Mr. Tillotson.
I will say it is a tremendous honor for Representative Blackshear and myself to be here, representing our colleagues at the Ohio House of Representatives, including several from our area who joined together to get this resolution from the Ohio House to the National Museum of the Air Force for the incredible accomplishment of 100 years in existence. And as we learn, as we go through this year, it's been around a little bit longer than that, not technically, but in the minds and imaginations and the hearts of those who restored and protected the collection of engines and aircrafts and parts that started at McCook Field and then has transformed into what we see today. I do want to mention that it is an incredible feat that the state of Ohio is able to be host to Wright-Patterson Air Force Base, to all of the individuals who come through and see this museum as they have been in the Air Force, and to this incredible national treasure. It's a national treasure that we are in today. It's a state and community treasure. And when I think of the words, you know, it leaves me speechless. Thinking about what I would want to say to you very briefly tonight. You know, iconic, heroic, legacy, bravery, innovation, transformation. I know I've been coming here for 50 years myself. We moved here when I was young, and my father, having served in the Air Force and flown on the B-29s, brought all of our guests to the Air Force Museum. For many years I've come, and I've brought my children, and now my grandchildren. And as I was so excited to see the space capsule and the first in space as a young woman, now we are seeing shuttle rockets and incredible things that we won't even be able to see because they don't exist in a form that our eyes can view. So for all of the individuals who have created this treasure, all of the employees of this museum who stood many generations before us and envisioned and dreamed all the exhibits, just like you've done today with this beautiful Enlisted museum dedication and honoring today. It's truly our honor to be here, and I want to thank you very much for allowing us to present this today.
Good evening. I will try not to be too repetitive, but I must highlight Chief Bass said that we shouldn't have favorites. But I want to go on record saying that this is my favorite museum. Now, I haven't been coming here for 50 years, but I remember this was actually my first school trip. And this is where I fell in love with planes. I actually wanted to be a pilot. But obviously that didn't work out. But I do want to thank our brave men and women who serve in our military. We should give them a round of applause once again. This museum is an asset to our community. I am glad to have it in my district, the 38th House District, and we want to keep it here. With all of the rich heritage and history, I've seen it grow throughout the years, and I look forward to seeing it grow even more in the near future. Once again, we have a resolution that we want to present, and I want to say this. This history is important. We must preserve it. One of the things that I did last General Assembly was that I introduced a piece of legislation that actually became law that made March 29th Tuskegee Airmen Day. I am glad to be a supporter, and I look forward to working with you all in the future. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Representative White, Representative Blackshear, and Mr. Tillotson. As we conclude this evening's event, our audience is free to tour the exhibit until 9:30 tonight and enjoy some light refreshments. On behalf of the National Museum of the United States Air Force, we would like to thank all of you who joined us this evening, both virtually and in person. We invite our virtual audience to visit the museum website for additional information on the Enlisted Force exhibit, and we look forward to seeing you here in person in the near future. As the world's largest and oldest military aviation museum, we are honored to highlight the enlisted airmen and guardians. You are the fabric of our forces, and we thank you. At this time, please stand for the departure of the official party and the playing of the United States Space Force song and the United States Air Force song. Thank you, and have a great evening.